video, that is the first time detectives learned that there was actually 4 people in that gray Jeep, and that the defendant, Jamel Demons, is in the rear driver's side seat.
Newly released footage has surfaced that could completely turn the YNW Melly murder case on its head. For the first time, we're witnessing what truly unfolded that night between Bortlen and Melly. But here's the wild part. Someone in that car made a dark choice once they reached a dead end. Let's unpack it. The night 2 close friends lost their lives. October 26, 2018 began like another ordinary night in the trap. Young hustlers grinding in the booth, chasing success, running from their demons. But by sunrise, 2 rising stars were gone, and their brother-in-arms was sitting in county jail accused of pulling the trigger. This is the untold story of how fame, cash, and loyalty got twisted into betrayal, one of hip-hop's most chilling downfalls. The YNW circle had been solid since childhood, growing up wild on the streets of Gifford, Florida, a tough spot where you either make it or die trying. Jamel YNW Melly Demons had been going viral off his smash hit Murder on My Mind, and the block was watching his rise closely. But all that shine was starting to build tension inside his circle. YNW Sackchaser, real name Anthony Williams, 21, and YNW Juve, real name Christopher Thomas Jr., 19, had been riding with Melly since day one. They'd shared the same struggle, the same grind. But lately, money had turned that brotherhood sour. After Melly inked his 300 entertainment deal, somewhere between $200,000 to $500,000 in mid-2018, his home is felt abandoned. Federal investigators later uncovered texts from Sackchaser demanding his cut, straight up writing, "You blowing up, and we still starving? Break bread or it's done." In Gifford, loyalty was sacred, and crossing that line could get you erased. The YNW squad had built their bond through pain, poverty, and shared dreams. They'd done time together, lost homies together, and pushed each other through the come-up. For years, they stood as one, believing that one man's win meant everyone ate. But the music game changes hearts fast, and Melly's sudden fame began to crack that unity they once swore by. His hit collab with Kanye West on Mixed Personalities took him to an entirely new level. Doors opened that his day one brothers couldn't step through. The flashy lifestyle that came with fame, diamond chains, foreign whips, A-list features, didn't match the struggle his people were still living back home. Meanwhile, gang ties and neighborhood politics were tightening. As members of the YNW Bloods, or Gifford Slimes, their crew operated under a code where power and respect were earned, not given. Melly's solo success started shaking that structure, sparking resentment both in his crew and within their wider set. The line between loyalty to his roots and loyalty to the set blurred fast. That fatal night, the crew linked up at New Era recording studios, cutting new tracks. When it was time to roll out, cameras captured what seemed like just another chill night with the gang.
The vibes look decent, I'm gonna be honest with you. It don't look like nobody kind of beefing, nobody look too excited. You know if somebody kind of got into it, like, they might be like, they're not just walking normal. Like, everybody looks kind of chill.
But any real street vet knows calm vibes can hide deadly storms. Behind all that casual energy, something deadly was already in motion. Around 4:08 a.m., the cameras caught the 4 of them leaving the studio together. The way they arranged themselves inside that rented grey Jeep Compass would later reveal who was unknowingly sitting in the seat of death. Footage shows Sackchaser climbing into what would later be called the death spot.
This is Sackchaser. Where does he get in? Good. Remember they said it was a gray vehicle. He gets into, this is Juvie, I said, right? He gets into the front right side.
At the same time, Melly is seen slipping into the rear seat, right behind the driver, a position prosecutors would later describe as ideal for a setup. From there, he allegedly had a clear line to both men in front, ready to strike.
Melly comes, and Melly goes to the back passenger. Yeah.
Prosecutors claim that seat placement wasn't random. As they cruised down the dark roads near Miramar Parkway between 4:10 and 4:20 a.m., Melly allegedly opened fire from that back left corner. The attack happened in seconds, too fast for anyone to even process what was going down.
He even shot through the seat multiple times, and there was no defense wounds to be like, stop. You get me? It was that quick. Bang, 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 bang. That quick. When
Sackchaser was struck 8 times, with deadly hits ripping through his head, neck, and chest. Juve was hit 4 times, each wound catastrophic. The autopsy revealed powder burns, unburnt residue from gunfire, proving the shots were fired from near point-blank distance. No defensive marks meant both men never even had a chance to react. They probably thought they were just cruising with family until it was too late. The coroner's report painted a chilling image of cold precision that stunned even veteran detectives. Sackchaser's fatal bullet entered through the back of his skull and tore out through the top, the impact powerful enough to shatter the front passenger window. Juve was struck through the left cheek at close range, the bullet's path showing he was still facing forward when it hit. The wound angles lined up perfectly, with both victims being completely unaware of the danger sitting behind them. What made the situation even darker was how planned it all seemed. The spot chosen, isolated, quiet, no cameras, no witnesses, showed serious forethought. The fact that both men were riddled with rounds, with more bullets fired through the seats afterward, proved this wasn't rage or panic. It was execution. The clean lack of struggle made it clear the shooter had surprise and control from start to finish. After the shooting, the real scale of the setup began to surface. Forensic tests later proved some bullets inside the car were fired after both men were already gone, evidence that the crime scene was being staged right after the killings. Every step looked mapped out, from the ambush to the fake drive-by story that followed. But what came next was the real ice-cold part. Prosecutors say this wasn't emotion or impulse. This was methodical, heartless strategy. After the shots, the alleged shooters drove to a deserted stretch of road, stepped out, and began dumping rounds into the car from the outside. They even switched weapons to make it look like strangers had pulled a random hit from the street.
To stage the shooting, because they believe people were already dead, they hopped out the car and then they shot up the car afterwards, and they believe those bullet casings they found at that spot was a .40 caliber.
Around 4:35 a.m., YNW Bortland rolled up to Memorial Hospital Miramar with two lifeless bodies inside the vehicle. He was calm, too calm, as he told staff and officers that they'd been victims of a drive-by. But Melly was nowhere in sight. Reports say he'd already been picked up from wherever they faked the ambush, leaving Bortland to play his part and deliver the cover story. The prosecution's biggest weapon came from social media. As news of the double murder spread, people started flooding Melly's phone, checking if he was safe. When one close friend messaged him asking what went down, prosecutors say his reply froze everyone who read it.
And Mr. Demmons responds very succinctly, "I did that."
Just 2 words. I did that. The district attorney would later argue that those words were nothing short of a confession, bragging about taking out his own brothers. The alleged motive, according to both Street Talk and prosecutors, was a deadly mix of greed, envy, and gang hierarchy, the kind that's torn more crews apart than any police raid ever could. Melly's rapid rise had thrown the group's money game out of balance, and power struggles started brewing in their blood-affiliated circle. All 4 were tied to the YNW Bloods, or Gifford Slimes, and when loyalty and profit collide in that world, someone usually ends up dead. The tragedy cuts even deeper because of how close they really were. Melly had literally tattooed their names on his face, proof of unbreakable brotherhood. These weren't enemies or rivals. They were his childhood partners, kids who dreamed of escaping poverty together, who built each other up through every rough night. The bodies weren't even cold before detectives realized this was no random drive-by. The evidence waiting to be uncovered would blow the lid off a cover-up so intricate it nearly fooled everyone, revealing how far someone would go to silence the ones who knew their every secret. The investigation that cracked it open. What began as a basic street shooting case quickly evolved into one of Florida's most complex forensic puzzles. The clues pieced together pointed to a level of criminal calculation rarely seen. A setup so layered it nearly tricked the system completely. When Miramar PD arrived at the hospital, they sealed off the Jeep and started pressing Bortland for details. His story was textbook hood routine. They were on their way home from the studio when random shooters pulled up and unloaded. But when detectives started digging into his version, what they found next made the whole department stop and question everything.
And they sit and they walk side by side for an hour, that mile-long stretch, looking for evidence of this drive-by. Because evidence is the remnants a crime leaves behind. And in this case, the lack of evidence is very important.
Detectives locked down the entire stretch of Miramar Parkway from 160th to 172nd Street, combing that mile-long area for over an hour, searching for anything that could back up the drive-by story. They found nothing. No shells, no shattered glass, no bullets, no tire marks. When they widened the search another full mile, the result was the same: 0 evidence. The situation screamed suspicious. With a Jeep full of bullet holes, 16 in total, plus a blown-out rear window and 2 destroyed side panes, there should have been debris everywhere. For any real drive-by with that much lead flying, investigators expected to see the usual signs. Spent casings from the shooter's guns, shattered glass sprinkled across the asphalt, bullets lodged in nearby structures, tire burns from a quick getaway, but there was nothing. 4 seasoned homicide detectives. That wasn't just odd. It was impossible if Bortland's story was legit. What made it even more glaring was how much destruction the SUV itself showed. 16 distinct bullet entries, several punching clean through the car's frame, made it clear the shooting was intense. Some of those rounds should have gone completely through the vehicle and into the ground, guardrails, or surrounding brush, yet not a single trace was found. The forensics team, moving systematically, noticed another major clue. The glass pattern didn't match a highway shootout. When car windows are hit while driving, The fragments scatter along a predictable path based on movement and shot direction. But there was no broken glass at the supposed location, meaning the windows had to have been destroyed somewhere else. That's when investigators decided to reverse engineer the timeline like true detectives. They retraced the crew's movements back to New Era recording studios, a place covered head to toe in cameras. What those cameras showed next flipped the entire narrative.
In the video, that is the first time detectives learned that there was actually 4 people in that gray Jeep, and that the defendant, Jamel Demons, is in the rear driver's side seat.
Turns out, Bortland never once said Melly was in the car that night. Detectives now realize there was someone missing, a supposed victim who somehow came out untouched, unless he wasn't a victim at all. The studio surveillance exposed even more cracks in Bortland's version. The timestamp revealed the crew left at 3:19 a.m., not earlier as he claimed. And what stood out even more was how calm and casual all 4 looked walking out. No tension, no paranoia, no signs they thought danger was coming. Nothing that fit the story of people fearing a hit. Inside footage told a similar tale. The 4 working together in the booth, vibing, laughing, recording tracks. No heat, no arguments, just a normal session. Their body language through the night was easygoing and natural, totally conflicting with any claim that things had turned violent on the spot. That footage later became crucial in dismantling the spur-of-the-moment fight theory. But what truly destroyed Bortland's credibility was his omission about Melly being in the vehicle. That wasn't some slip-up. It was a straight cover move. If he could lie about who was even there, cops figured he could lie about everything else, too. That's when the investigation leveled up. Detectives turned to the tech, cell data, GPS pings, and text logs. They were about to trace every step, every signal, every second. The digital trail left behind by everyone involved would end up exposing far more than any witness could have.
Because at that location is where the cell phones of Christopher Thomas, Anthony Williams, and Jamel Demons all line up at 4:02 a.m. At that point, afterwards, Mr. Demons' phone tracks with the 2 victims until about 4:20.
Cell tower logs painted a perfect digital map. At 4:02 a.m., all 3 phones, Melly's, Sackchaser's, and Uveus, pinged from the same remote area near US 27 and Pembroke Road, right when the murders were believed to have occurred. For the next 18 minutes, until 4:20 a.m., all 3 signals moved together. Then, Melly split off, while the others' paths led straight to the hospital. The phone data gave police a near frame-by-frame reconstruction of the night's movements. It showed the vehicles driving together across I-595, then separating near Miramar Parkway and 184th Street. One heading into the Sunset Lakes gated community, the other north toward darker, emptier roads. But one discovery topped them all. Melly and Sackchaser had identical phones on the same carrier plan, allowing investigators to track their devices with pinpoint precision, and proving beyond doubt that Melly was right there when it all went down. The phone data tracked both devices traveling together to the secluded spot where the murders were believed to have taken place, lingering there during the crucial time window before splitting apart. One signal moving back toward the city, the other heading in the direction of the hospital. But the location data wasn't all. Investigators also pulled up health and motion stats from Melly's phone. It logged 70 steps at the studio, another 70 steps at 4:02 a.m., right when the killings allegedly happened, then a spike of 1,397 steps between 4:42 and 4:53 a.m., suggesting he was on the move, possibly arranging a ride from the scene. The physical data told its own story. Meanwhile, the ballistics results backed it up even harder. Inside the Jeep, technicians recovered spent shells, proving that gunfire came from inside the vehicle, completely destroying the drive-by narrative. More shell evidence soon surfaced at the same remote area identified by the phone pings.
Why is that important? That shows a gun was fired inside of that car.
At that lonely patch of land traced through GPS data, investigators recovered 8 additional .40 caliber casings. The ballistics report pointed to 2 separate shootings, one that killed the victims from inside the vehicle, and another staged later to mimic an external attack. Forensic testing showed the interior and exterior casings were from 2 different caliber guns, meaning whoever planned this had swapped weapons to throw off investigators. The trajectory analysis confirmed what the cameras had already hinted. The fatal bullets were fired from inside the Jeep, from the back left seat, right where footage showed Melly sitting that night. The shot paths and impact points matched perfectly with someone firing diagonally across the car toward the front passenger and rear right seats. The accuracy, plus the absence of any struggle wounds, proved the shooter had both surprise and full control. Even the post-murder staging was calculated. The bullets fired later from outside were aimed to sell the illusion of a drive-by, clustering on the passenger side. But the entry angles didn't line up with shots from a moving car. Instead, they pointed to someone standing still, firing deliberately from close range. The coroner's final report sealed it, proving the drive-by scene was faked with precision and planning colder than anyone imagined.
A drive-by was staged at 4:02 a.m. The victims were already dead.
The autopsy confirmed the worst. Those outer gunshots came after the victims were already dead. The killer had fired into their lifeless bodies to complete the setup. That single fact obliterated the drive-by theory entirely. Investigators later discovered digital communications that revealed the cover-up in motion. Melly allegedly FaceTimed his girlfriend from that same remote location, already spinning an alibi. He also dropped his GPS pin to friends, asking for a pickup, evidence that placed him exactly where the crime had been staged. Still, when the case hit court in 2023, it ended in a deadlock. 8 jurors voted guilty, 4 said not guilty. Missing weapons, shaky motive, and questionable police work left enough doubt to stall a conviction. 4 years afterward, Melly and Bortland stood united, keeping their silence and insisting they'd been caught in a random ambush. But silence doesn't last forever, not when the sentence on the line is life behind bars. And what came next would prove that street loyalty only stretches so far before survival takes over. After 6 long years of holding the line together, that code of silence finally snapped. On September 9, 2025, loyalty in the YNW circle died for good. Just hours before jury selection for his own trial, YNW Bortland flipped, taking a plea deal that could send his childhood friend Melly straight to death row. For 6 years, he played the part, sticking to the story, standing firm under pressure. But when you're staring down multiple life bids and the judge calls your name the next morning, even the most loyal start doing the math. In the end, survival outweighed brotherhood, and the code they built their lives on collapsed in one final act of betrayal.
YNW Bortland, he could took the deal. Where did I leave Melly though, brother? Where did I leave YNW Melly and the case?
The timing couldn't have been more intense. His defense team was geared up for battle. Jurors were already lined up, and then out of nowhere, everything flipped. The mountain of charges against him told the story of a man cornered by a justice system built to crush street loyalty.
Counts 1 and 2 is murder in the first degree with a firearm. Those are capital offenses. The maximum and mandatory penalty is life in Florida State Prison. Counts 3 and 4 are accessory after the fact to murder in the first degree. Those are each first degree felonies. The maximum penalty is 30 years in Florida State Prison.
Prosecutors had been moving like chess masters while Bortland was still playing checkers, stacking charge after charge until he was staring at 5 life sentences plus 75 extra years. What began as simple accessory charges exploded into 2 first-degree murder counts, witness tampering, and gang conspiracy allegations. The steady build-up of charges showed the prosecution's tactical genius and relentless persistence. At first, Bortland was only accused of helping cover up crimes, not committing them, something that could have meant a survivable sentence. But when prosecutors couldn't lock down Melly's conviction, they ramped up the heat, turning Bortland into a prime target. Adding murder charges was a massive leap in legal danger. In Florida, a first-degree murder conviction means mandatory life with 0 chance of parole. That's not up for negotiation. It was a hard law, leaving judges no room for leniency. For a young man who'd already lost years behind bars waiting for trial, the thought of dying in prison became the ultimate reason to question his loyalty. The extra witness tampering and gang-related counts made things even worse. They painted a picture of someone accused of sabotaging the case while acting as part of a criminal crew. Every new charge carried its own potential life sentence, giving prosecutors multiple paths to bury him forever. The DA's entire playbook was psychological warfare, keep tightening the screws until he cracked. They turned a few-decade bid into a lifetime sentence trap, forcing Bortland to choose between silence and survival, and that's exactly how they got him to fold.